Hello, people of God. I believe we are all doing well today. Welcome to today's episode of Tips on Healthy Living. My name is Abimeli Agbomeke, and on this series, we'll be looking at genotype, blood group, and rhesus factor. The Lord has greatly helped our spiritual parents to continuously herald the message of righteousness tirelessly over the years. It's interesting to know that alongside all of these will always be the event of giving and taking in marriage. Therefore, dear brothers and sisters, there are certain hereditary factors we need to be aware of, which can affect our family health when we move into the marriage estate. This knowledge will help us make informed decisions in our choice of who to marry and how to manage our family health. So, the goal of this discussion is to give us a robust knowledge about rhesus factor. But we first need to have a foundational knowledge of genotype and blood group before we can understand rhesus factor. We are all aware that no two human beings are exactly the same. People could bear some form of resemblance, look alike, act the same, perhaps even talk the same, but in reality, no two people are absolutely identical. These physical characteristics that can be readily seen are the phenotype of an individual. Take note. When we now look closely and deeply into the makeup of an individual, we'll see that genotype is the biological coding that ensures the specificity and uniqueness of each individual's physical traits, or what I called phenotype earlier in this discussion. In other words, the genotype determines the phenotype. However, the DNA, that is deoxyribonucleic acid, is the instruction manual. When I say instruction manual, just like the manual that comes with your gadgets and things like that. So the DNA is the instruction manual that guides the formation of our genetic traits, which in turn controls our physical traits. Examples of these physical traits include our height, color of skin, hair color, shape of nose, eye color, and so on and so forth. A key difference between phenotype and genotype is that while genotype is inherited from one's parents, the phenotype is not inherited. And while a phenotype is influenced by the genotype, there are other factors such as lifestyle and environment that influences a person's physical traits. A key difference between phenotype and genotype is that while genotype is inherited from one's parents, the phenotype is not inherited. And while a phenotype is influenced by the genotype, there are other factors such as lifestyle and environment that influences a person's physical traits. For example, a person that has the genetically influenced tendency to be fat might not end up becoming fat if he or she adopts certain lifestyle practices like exercise and controlled diet. However, this individual cannot transfer his acquired slim physique to his or her offspring. Note the word acquired. A characteristic you acquired cannot be transferred to your offspring. Having established these facts, let us now move on to blood genotype. Blood genotype indicates the genetic makeup of an individual's blood in its entirety. Typically, there are 5 distinct types of blood genotype. We have AA, AS, AC, SS, and SC. While the first 2 pairs, which is AA and AS, are normal, AC is rare, and the latter 2, SS and SC, are irregular and abnormal, commonly causing sickle cell disease. Normally, red blood cells are round and flexible and can move easily through blood vessels. However, in sickle cell disease, the red blood cells are shaped like sickles. These rigid, sticky sickled cells can get stuck in small blood vessels, thereby slowing or blocking blood flow and oxygen supply to parts of the body. And this in turn leads to pain and could cause damage to vital organs. As we all know, AA can marry anybody, but AS must not marry AS, else there is a 25% probability that they would give birth to an SS child. And if you know how probability works, you'd know that if they were to give birth to 4 children, all 4 could end up being SS. So by all means, it is not a risk worth taking. You would agree with me that no child should be brought into this world to live a life of pain and suffering. So as you trust God for a life partner and prepare for marriage, make it a duty as part of your preparation to know the genotype and blood group of your friends, not only for the purpose of marriage, but also for the sake of blood transfusion, as we will see later in this discussion. So for understanding of this next part, there are 2 important terms we must know. Number 1 is antibodies. What are antibodies? Antibodies are proteins that protect you when an unwanted substance enters your body. They are produced by your immune system. Antibodies bind to these unwanted substances in order to eliminate them from your system. In other words, they are the body's natural defense system. Another word for antibody is immunoglobulin. The second term is antigens. An antigen is a foreign or unwanted substance that enters your body. This can include bacteria, viruses, fungi, allergens, venom, and other various toxins. So antibodies attack and fight off antigens. Now on to blood type or blood group. So we see that heredity is what determines a person's blood group. This means that blood group or blood type is passed down from parents to offspring. A blood type is a classification of blood based on the presence and absence of antibodies. Remember, we defined antibodies as the body's natural defense system, right? So blood type is basically blood classification based on certain antibodies and inherited antigenic substances. Antigenic substances, that is, those substances that cause the immune system to produce antibodies against it. So the category of antigens we're talking about under blood type or blood group are found on the surface of red blood cells and are inherited from one's parents and are unlike the viruses and bacteria that we mentioned earlier. These ones do not come from outside the body. They are inherited. There are 2 important blood group systems which determine a person's blood type for suitability in blood transfusion. The first one is the ABO blood group system. The ABO blood group system involves 2 antigens and 2 antibodies found in human blood. The 2 antigens are antigen A and antigen B. The 2 antibodies are antibody A and antibody B. The antigens are present on the red blood cells, while the antibodies are present in blood serum. So, blood serum is basically a clear liquid in which all the cells in the blood are suspended. So, back to our discussion regarding the antigen property of the blood. All human beings can be classified into 4 naturally occurring groups. One is the antigen A with antibody B, the antigen B with antibody A, antigen AB with neither antibody A nor B. Then 4 is antigen null group O with both antibody A and B. This means that a person that is said to have blood group A has antigen A and antibody B. And a person with blood group B has antigen B and antibody A. A person that is group AB has neither antibody A nor B and both antigen A and B. Then a person that is O has both antibody A and B and no antigen. The rule is that similar antigens and antibodies cannot exist in the same blood, meaning that antigen A and antibody A cannot coexist, as antibody A would attack antigen A, which could result in death at a very fast rate. The same applies to antigen B and antibody B. A person with blood type AB has both antigen A and antigen B, and hence has neither antibody A nor B that can attack these antigens in his blood. Whereas a person that has blood group O has no antigens but has both antibodies A and B. So we see God's wisdom in designing the human blood types. Agglutination is the reaction that occurs between similar antigen and antibody. For example, between antigen A and antibody A, or between antigen B and antibody B. Agglutination simply means blood clotting, and in this case, there is blood clotting of red blood cells. The agglutinated red cells can clog blood vessels and stop the circulation of the blood to various parts of the body. The agglutinated red blood cells also crack and its contents leak out in the body. The red blood cells contain hemoglobin, which is the red pigment within these cells that give blood its red coloration. This pigment becomes toxic when it moves outside the red blood cell. Therefore, proper knowledge of your blood group is needed before you undergo any sort of blood transfusion. The blood group of the donor must first be identified to establish compatibility with the blood group of the recipient. If this process is not carefully and judiciously taken, complications can arise from the simplest of blood transfusions, which could turn an ordinarily harmless procedure fatal. Dear people of God, thank you for your rapt attention so far. This is how far we can go in this discussion today. We will continue in the next episode. I remain yours, Abimili. Bye for now.